Yes, hello and welcome to Turkish football's fortnightly wrap-up of the men and women's Super League, Matchday 27 of the men, Matchday 12 of the women's, and a lot of goals, a lot of action. So before we get right into it, let me invite my pundit, Furkan Aydın. Furkan, how are you?
Warm welcome to you, Mehmet. Thanks for introduction. Yes, a very interesting week of Super League action, which we'll get straight into, as well as we've got some midweek action. So we'll discuss all of that in this show, hopefully.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot to talk about. There's some interesting stats about goals in there as well that I'm sure you're going to want to talk about. So let's start with obviously the leaders of the league, Trabzonspor. Take us through that. Trabzon with another win this time. They had to put up a bit of a fight, didn't they?
Yes, that's right. It was eventually a 3-2 victory, but they did go into the halftime break behind, with Kayserispor going up 2-0, and a surprising sort of 2-1 rather, but they were 2-0 up, and then Trabzonspor rallying behind. Sorry, it was 2-0 actually at the halftime break, and then in the second half.
Yes, it was.
The second half, it was a massive resurgence from the Trabzon side, and Kayseri at one point could have made it 3, could have made it 4 actually. And then that man on your screen earlier, and Nwakame, turned it around. He was probably the man of the match. 1 goal, 1 assist, 9 duels won, 12 touches inside the opponent box. He was wonderful. On the Kayserispor front, Hikmet Karaman has now lost 7 games in a row against Trabzonspor. So he's on a bit of a hoodoo there. Trabzonspor at home are now 20 matches undefeated in the league, which is their second best ever streak, going back to the 90s. So they're playing excellent football, Mehmet. Is there much more we can really add to their performances?
Yeah, I mean, there's not much you can add. I feel like we're very repetitive with these guys, week in, week out. But they're just insane. And I mean, Nwakame, amazing performance. But I just want to open a little side note to Edin Visca as well.
Yes.
You know, it's the first time I've got a little note here that I've put for myself. It's the first time he scored in three back-to-back games since 2018, when he was at Başakşehir. And he's flying. I mean, he's flying. Nwakame's flying, which means Trabzonspor's flying. And so I feel like Trabzonspor, even though Abdullah Avcı does always say we're not champions yet, you know, we can't get too reluctant. I feel like Trabzonspor can start slowly with their celebrations. But saying Trabzonspor, there is something we want to show because of next week's fixture. I mean, there's a big fixture next week. Fenerbahçe hosting Trabzonspor, and Abdullah Avcı just this morning after the Turkish Cup win against Antalyaspor had some things to say about that game. So let's listen to what he has to say, and then we can move on.
Öncelikle gerçekten çok uzun bir maratonun içerisinde kaybetmeme alışkanlığını elde eden, gerek sabır oyunu, gerek geçiş oyunlarını son derece iyi bir şekilde sergileyen bir Trabzonspor profili var ki zorluk derecesi çok yüksek bir periyottan da çıktınız. Hafta sonu Fenerbahçe maçı var, sakatlıklar var, tabii ki hastalıklar var. Nasıl bir maç beklentisi var? Bu maçın özelinde de kırılma dakikaları oldu ama özellikle geçtiğimiz maça baktığımızda Abdullah Avcı'nın hamleleriyle beraber kazanılan puanlar var. Bundan sonrasını nasıl değerlendiriyorsunuz?
Harika bir sezon. Her şey çok güzel. Trabzon taraftarı, şehri bunun keyfini çıkarsın. Ben öyle o şekilde hazırlanacağız hafta sonuna. Fenerbahçe ile Trabzonspor ilk defa karşılaşmıyor. Öncesinde de tarihinde de çok karşılaştılar. Bundan sonra da karşılaşacaklar. Bir lig müsabakasına hafta sonu itibariyle keyif yaparak, eğlenerek en iyi şekilde zihinsel ve fiziksel hazırlanacağız. Yarın sabah antrenman yapacağız. Ertesi günü dinleneceğiz. Çünkü yorgunluklar çok fazla, biraz uzak kalmamız lazım. Cuma günü tekrarlarımız çok fazla. Mevcutta hafta sonuna doğru bakıp en iyi kadro değerlendirmesini yapıp ona göre hazırlanacağız. Çünkü bu sene Trabzonspor her şeyi istiyoruz. Her şeyi kazanmak istiyoruz. Bunun için ligde de önemli fırsatlar var cebimizde, çok fazla. Bunun keyfini çıkararak en iyi şekilde hazırlanmayı düşünüyoruz.
Yes, and Abdullah just basically just saying there that they've enjoyed themselves the whole season, and they will enjoy themselves while they're preparing for the big game on the weekend against Fenerbahce, one of their biggest rivals. And this question was posed to him when was asked about Bruno Perez, who's carrying an injury right now. So Ferks, do you think that's a good mindset to go with with your injuries? He's just saying we're just guided with what we have.
Yeah, look, I think the mindset down there at Trabzon is quite relaxed. Going back to probably a conversation we had in December, we alluded to the fact when the point difference was about 10, that the only way that the title race would still be on is if the other teams below them can keep the pressure, which they haven't, and that's just allowed Trabzonspor to play more freely. This week, if the point difference was maybe 4 or 5 and they were 2-0 behind Kayserispor, I think there'd be a bit more panic. But with that sort of buffer and the way they're playing football, they played more relaxed and they controlled the game and they had a wonderful victory. So, and to add to that, that he mentioned that he's not only in it for the league itself, but also all comps. So he's referring to the Turkish Cup, which they were 2-0 winners today against Antalyaspor. So they're through to the semi-finals. So all guns blazing down at Trabzon, and their fans would be delighted.
Absolutely. And yeah, as you just said, everything is going all good up there. So let's go to our next game, Beşiktaş. They're slowly finding their feet as well. 3-2 winners in Sivas. Batshuayi, we'll get to that topic later. Do you want to take us through that game as well? And we can talk about the side notes a bit later.
Yeah, sure. Again, Beşiktaş, they've been on the bit of the up of late. They're now 8 games undefeated, winners at Sivas in a hard away match to get all 3 points. And they did play overall quite a good game. Batshuayi getting a brace in this game. His goal total is up to 10, so he's into the double digits. We did also seen Rashid Ghezal score a nice goal. And I think the important point here is, aside from the game itself, is the coach Önder. He's now, like I said, 8 games undefeated. And from where he picked up Beşiktaş to where he sort of carried them, I think they're now in 5th position, if I'm not mistaken, 5th or 6th. But they're not that many points away from second either. So he's really taken them up the standings. And my question to you, Mehmet, is does Beşiktaş give him an opportunity next year with a full season, with a pre-season, with new players, new transfers, and the whole works?
I mean, that's a very good question. I think that's a question that we're all very curious about at the moment, because Önder Karaveli, I think he's been phenomenal this year, considering his minimal experience. However, he's taken over. You could consider it a shipwreck. I mean, when Sergen left, he was the team was down. No one sort of wanted to be there. You could see that no one wanted to be there. The big players, your Pjanic, your Batshuayi, they weren't really playing properly. So I think he has done a lot for the club, and I think mainly with the young players as well. So it is important. I think they give him a chance. Obviously, given where they finished this year, so we will be looking at the table just a bit later. But they are in 6th spot, a point behind Adana Demirspor, who's been on good form of late. But I think they should give him a chance. Batshuayi, very interesting player, isn't he? I mean, the whole season we said he's bad, and it's the first time he's hit double digits since the 2015-16 season when he was playing with Marseille. So not even with Chelsea, he couldn't hit double digits. He comes here, he's bad, but he's hit double digits. I think he's a very interesting player.
mind you, Mims, I think out of those 10 goals, this is his third time he scored a brace this season. So that's 3 games, 6 goals, and then that means he scored in 4 other games. So he either trades up or he doesn't really do much.
Yeah, I mean, very, very interesting one. I mean, 10 goals is still very. I think you could still respect that considering the performances that the forwards of the big 3 teams have been giving in the latest years. I mean, sometimes the 2-3 forwards combined can't even do that for you. In the last few years. So hats off to them. Let's move on to Galatasaray. Galatasaray obviously were up against Rizespor at home. Mind the mistake. We'll fix that soon. But yeah, 4-2 at home against Rizespor. I mean, Galatasaray had a lot to play for here because of, Gedson Fernandez, who did score. Scored the first goal, scored an amazing goal as well. The free kick went top corner. And it's his first Super League goal as well. So Galatasaray obviously had a lot to play for. There's been a lot of beef between Galatasaray and Rizespor, obviously over, past referee decisions, we might want to call it, the transfer of Musa Charan, now Gedson Fernandez. So first, do you have? I'm sure you'll have it. I'm sure you'll have interesting stats.
Yeah, man.
About this one as well.
Yeah, Mems. Now with this game, I think it was actually the game of the round. It had 6 goals in it. But for anyone who actually did watch this game had constant events happening. Every second something was happening. Second half, it was almost, there was going to be a goal every 2 minutes. Penalties, penalties not given down at the Rize front. Some penalties given to the Galatasaray side, which were a bit controversial. And I'll give you a stat for that. This season, Galatasaray has now received 9 penalties, and the team who's conceded the most penalties is Rizespor, who has 8. So I think the 2 that went Gala's way and the 2 that went against Rize helped that stat this week. And one special mention to Galatasaray's left back, Van Aanholt, if I'm pronouncing his name correctly.
Yep.
He scored a brace, and he scored a terrific. For me, Gedson Fernandez's goal was probably a highlight. Tyler Boyd for Rizespor, sorry. He scored a wonderful second goal for Rizespor too, also outside the box. But for me, that team goal that Gala scored with Van Aanholt, getting the ball, passing it, and then the layoff and him finishing it, that was actually amazing. And the stadium, Mehmet, that was a massive change. The atmosphere sort of shifting. It was almost a full house. Buffettini Gomez's return has really sparked the crowd, I guess. He scored again late on. He missed the penalty before that, but when he did score, they had to send all somebody go on, and that atmosphere that Gala's renowned for at their home ground was sort of back. So an important 3 points for Gala. It probably now means they'll probably be safe this year. There was some scares, but now a couple of wins in a row is crucial. They got to keep winning. Talking about Buffettini Gomez, his penalty ratio in the Super League is not that flash. He's now taken 10 penalties and he's only scored 6, so he's just scoring a bit better than half of his attempts, so at 60%. And that sort of says Gala, in the sense Gala is now probably opening up their European chapter or continuing their European chapter.
Yeah, and Imetai says tiki-taka goal about Patrick Van Aanholt. Sort of did remind us of Pep Guardiola's Barcelona.
Correct. And we do know who Pep Guardiola's assistant was. He's the current coach, Dominic. So a good reference there.
That's exactly right. And I think I think I think it's an important, not really a stat, but I think it's an important point to point out that Galatasaray has now won two in a row. Last week was Dominic Torrent's first win. So 6 points in his 2 games. I mean, he did struggle with life in Turkey, life in Florida to start off with. But I think it's something massive. And, let's hope I'm right, because none of us like seeing, our big clubs sort of mid-table or below on the table, low on the table. So I'm just hoping I'm right that it's something massive for us to be saying, Galatasaray have 2 wins in a row now, because Dominic Torrent, obviously, as you just said, Ferks, is, Pep Guardiola's assistant of years. So, you'd expect some good, some magical work, I'll say, to come out of there. And obviously, Galatasaray, Europa League, Barcelona, Ferks, comments. And if anyone has comments, please pop it in the comment section. We are keen to hear what everyone has to say, because we, I think, got the short end of the stick.
Yeah, Mems, I think this is a really, really tough tie for Galatasaray. Although Barcelona is not the same old Barcelona, and that's probably the reason why they're in the Europa League at the moment. They're finding a bit of form of late, with Xavi taking over the helm, and he's got a new trio up front. He's got Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, who's now scored 3 or 4 games in a row, I think. Ferran Torres, Adama Traore, and they've got Osman Dembele, who sort of refound himself. So we know the team quite well. What they're capable of, and I think they're just hitting a bit of form now. And Xavi's sort of making them play right football. And we said Gola hasn't really been that strong, although they were undefeated in their group. So it'll be an interesting clash. It's a knockout. It's a knockout affair. And the most important thing, like I said earlier, that ambience they have at home, if they can sort of create that at their home fixture and, really get the support of the fans, get Gomis to lift the crowd, lift the boys, they might, you never know what can happen in football. So all the best to them. They're the only remaining team. And I think we're going to now talk about the team, the other team who was still in Europe, but just got knocked out of just last week.
Yeah, absolutely. And we are about to jump on to Feyenoord. We will talk about the Sparta Prague game as well. But just want to add my 2 cents as well. I mean, in my opinion, Galatasaray is playing one of the favourites, if not the favourite. So, a win here could potentially get us talking about, is Galatasaray going to lift the trophy for a second time? Obviously, both teams, I think their season has been fairly similar to each other. They started off really bad. Obviously Barcelona was just a tad better, obviously quality of players. But again, as I said before, let's hope that Dominic Torrent, that those 2 wins sort of bring the team together and it's a good football affair. So that will be played in the Europa League. And let's move on for the last game of the week, which is Fenerbahce, who beat Kasımpaşa in the 91st minute away from home to secure their 3rd back-to-back win, their first 3 wins back-to-back since October. Ferks, take us through it.
And just on that stat, the last time Fener did 3-on-3, it's the teams they got the current streak on, which is Hatay, Giresun, and Kasımpaşa, which they've repeated again in the same season. So maybe we should play these teams consistently from a Fenerbahce perspective. Now, going to the game itself, Fenerbahce has historically travelled very well at the Pasha Stadium. Of 18 trips to Kasımpaşa's stadium, they won 16 games. So it's almost like a home game. It's actually not too far in as well geographically. It was a bit of a grind, Mems. Last minute, Attila stepping up and scoring the winner. And I think the football wasn't pretty, but the 3 points is what counts at this stage. I guess at any at any football game. It's the 3 points that's the important thing. Now, a couple of things there. Altay, big shout out to goalkeeper Altay. Custom Pasha had plenty of chances, and this man here was probably the man of the match. He had 7 saves. He equaled his personal best for this season, and after being out for a lengthy period, you can say 3-4 months, he's now sort of finding his old form. He had a great Hatay game as well, so and probably this is probably been his best game on his return. Mems, take us away with how they went in Europe last week and how you sort of how you seeing Fenerbahce. You know, they're winning in the league. They weren't as successful, you know, in Europe. So, what's your 2 cents?
I mean, just to start off with Altay, another, you know, to add to your stats, ever since his return from his injury, which was that first Hatay win that you were speaking about, the 3 games back-to-back, he's had 18 shots taken at him and 16 saves. So obviously no disrespect to Bad Kurzad, who is another young goalkeeper. But I think Altay's proving his worth here. And I mean, you know, that whole conversation about, you know, who's Turkey's number 1? Is it Urcan? Is it Altay? I mean, they're both proving this season why why they are number 1 and number 2. And there's no option for anything else because obviously Altay had that injury, but Urcan's been, you know, spectacular. Coming back from a 3-month injury, you think that he was, you know, a bit rusty, but that's not the case with Altay. About that game is this guy on screen here, Arda Güler. I mean, had run in the league on Facebook and Instagram, what he did in that short period when he came on. So this man was just spectacular, and I think that's the only highlight we could talk about for the Sparta Prague game. Defensively, extremely poor. Midfield, non-existent. Talking about the first 11, and ultimately that leads to the forward. So Serdar Dursun, if I wasn't wrong, and Berisha, you know, being non-existent as well. And the team just started picking up in that 15, 20 minutes that Arda Güler was on. So kudos to this 17-year-old guy who is shaking Turkey at the moment. We wish him the best in his career. I mean, how good is he, and how, you know, he's such a professional at this age, isn't he?
Yeah, definitely. And he's just turned 17 last week on Friday. So he, you know, this kid was 16 not so long ago. Still very, very young, very, very raw. And he's got a great role model in Mesut Özil, who's helping him out at the training ground. So he's got the perfect number 10 role model. And just to want to make a comment, Mems, that guy who's got his hands on his head there, Miha Zayt, I just haven't been able to work out how his form's gone this season, or pretty much ever since he's been at Fenerbahce. Every time you think, you know, this guy, it doesn't really do much, doesn't have much impact, he comes out and he scores this, sometimes you think a fluky goal, and he scored now about 5 or 6 this season. So he does it every now and then, and I haven't really worked him out, you know. Is he a good player, or is he just someone who sort of ghosts around?
I think he's just another Batshuayi from what we were talking about before. Just if you want to hear a very interesting stat about him, Ferks, he is the player this season out of all teams to score the most first goals in a game. So he scored 4 times, as 4 of his goals were the first goal of the game, and he's scored the most out of all 20 teams. So I don't know what we're going to do with this information, but I think it's a good piece of information.
Look out for That's a great comment. He's got more.
That's a great comment by Ahmed.
That's sort of the way he plays, you know. It's like, you know, you think he might have some grace about him, and then, you know, next minute you can't really see him do much on the field. So, I guess that's a great stat to sum him up. You know, just be careful of Miha Zajc at the early stages of the game. He might do something miraculous.
You don't have to worry after 30 minutes, we should say. All right, so let's move on to the rest of the results of Matchday 27. Just to go through them quickly. Adana Demirspor 0, Antalyaspor 0. Başakşehir lost to Fatih Karagümrük at home. Altay, their first home win in months against Gaziantep Football Club 3-2. Giresunspor beat Göztepe 3-1. A shock scoreline, Alanyaspor defeating Konyaspor 5-1. And Hatayspor defeating Yeni Malatyaspor 5-2. Yeni Malatya looking more and more dangerous, I'd say, for their own sake. They've just got rid of their coach and their captain at the same time, who was the same person, Adem Büyük. So the constant changes for these guys, I can't see positives in it. Was there anything that you were expecting, anything different, Ferks?
Well, as a summary, we have 44 goals. So we've gone through the 4 big teams who all won this week. There's not many times we've said that this season. All 4 big teams won. All 3 big Istanbul teams won. That's, I think, in itself a big sort of call. The team I'm disappointed this week is we saw so many goals, and then Adana Demir and Antalyaspor play out a 0-0 draw. Adana Demir usually play, you know, they score some goals. It's so disappointing they didn't live up to the week. Hatay's finding some form. Alanya's playing great football. And Giresunspor, they had the Fenerbahçe Loni Mohamed Gümüşkaya, who scored and assisted. So that would put some smiles on some Fener fans. Altay finding a much-needed victory, 3-2. And I think that was a bit of a shock result. Başakşehir losing at home to Volkan Demirel's team 2-1. So Volkan got one up against Emre, his former teammate.
Yeah. And I think I want to add a third to the comments on Batshuayi and Miha Zajc, and that's Alanyaspor. I can never predict what they're going to do. So if I ever give you you know, multi tips on Alanyaspor, I probably wouldn't listen to it. All right, let's have a look at the table. Trabzonspor obviously first. Konyaspor 2 losses in 2 weeks, and they've dropped off now. They're now 9 points behind Trabzonspor. Sorry, 7 points. Mind my maths. Başakşehir still stays there. Fenerbahçe moves into the top 4 ahead of Adana Demir with only 3 points behind second spot now after their 3 back-to-back wins. Beşiktaş has been moving up the table into 6th. Alanya and Hatay, I feel like Alanya and Hatay are like Siamese twins. Every time I look at the table, they're right next to each other. And this has been the case for 2 years now.
That's right.
and apart, putting the jokes aside, now looking at the bottom of the table, the 2 Izmir sides, Göztepe and Altay, are in the danger zone. Rizespor, after a loss to Galatasaray at home, away from home, is second last, and Malatyaspor is 6 points behind second last spot. So Malatyaspor finds himself in a massive, massive limbo. Let's move on now to next week's fixtures, Ferks. And we could probably do some multi-tips here. So Malatyaspor, Adana Demirspor will be playing on Saturday morning. On Sunday morning, Göztepe, Kasımpaşa, Rizespor, Giresunspor, and Konyaspor Galatasaray. Monday morning, Fatih Karagümrük, Altay, Antalyaspor, Sivasspor, Fenerbahçe, Trabzonspor, the big game. And then on Tuesday morning, we've got Beşiktaş, Başakşehir, which is another big game. Gaziantep, Hatay, Kayseri, Alanya. Obviously, these are all in Australian Eastern Standard Times. Ferks, take us away. What's your predictions?
Well, I'll make one bold prediction. Fenerbahçe to beat Trabzon. So I think Fenerbahçe might rise to the occasion and finally beat Trabzon. He's gone on a bit of a streak.
A big call.
Haven't lost in a while, so that's my bold call for the week. Another great, interesting game from the big teams. Gala playing away to Konya. Now, Konya Sport has started to slip up, and Gala's sort of been on the up. So, another bold call. I'm going to say Gala to get 3 points at Konya. Beşiktaş, Başakşehir here. Should we make it 3 and 3? I reckon all 3 Istanbul teams to win. How about it?
You think so? That's going to be interesting.
And then we've got another interesting clash. We've got Rizespor, Giresunspor playing in the lower half. That's a very crucial game for the in Karadeniz game, sort of derby there. And we've got Alanya Sport playing away to Kayseri. So there's actually a lot of interesting clashes in terms of the table. So we'll see what sort of pans out. What sort of strikes your mind?
What strikes my mind? Let's have a quick look at them. I think Rizespor will get a big win against Giresunspor. I'm not too sure why. I just have a feeling Rizespor is going to step up after the frustration of the Galatasaray game. Konyaspor Galatasaray, I agree with you. I think Galatasaray will win this game, given the two teams' form in the past few weeks. And Konyaspor has been completely sort of pushed out with that 5-1 win. I think that's going to be getting them morally. I mean, no comments on the Fener Trabzon game because on the big games like this, I usually get them wrong. So let's just say a draw for this one. Anything else that strikes my mind? Obviously, Başakşehir, Beşiktaş. I agree with you. I think Beşiktaş will take this game as well. They've been on fine form as well recently. And so let's quickly move on to the women's. Actually, before we move on to the women's, now we listen to the Trabzonspor side of the weekend's game against Fenerbahce. Let's listen to Fenerbahce's side against Trabzonspor. Both managers were asked about the same thing, about the game on the weekend. So let's have a look at what İsmail Kartal had to say about this game.
Her zaman Türkiye'de ses getiren maçlardır. Çok önemli maçlardır. Biz kendi evimizde kazanmak için sahaya çıkacağız. Yani ligdeki sıralamadaki üst sıralarda kendimize iyi bir yer bulabilmek, sezonu iyi bir şekilde bitirebilmemiz için Trabzon maçını da kazanmamız lazım. Yolumuza devam etmemiz için tabii burada kendi evimizde oynarken buradan isteyeyim. Böyle bir maçta gelip bizi sonuna kadar desteklemelerini, bize takımma ve oyuncularıma inanmalarını istiyorum. Eğer onlar bize destek verirse onların enerjisiyle biz çok daha iyi şeyleri başaracağımıza inanıyorum. Onlar varsa biz varız. Taraftarlarımız bizim her şeyimiz. Camiaları, kulüpleri ayakta tutan camiaları ve taraftarlarıdır yani. Bizim taraftarlarımız bugün Türkiye'nin en büyük sivil toplum örgütünün en önemli bunu yaratan, bu enerjiyi ortaya çıkaran bizim taraftarlarımızdır. Bizim onlara her zaman ihtiyacımız var. Belki şu an takım olarak onların isteklerini bu sezon belki çok da öyle mutlu edebilecek bir durumda değiliz. Bunun da farkındayız. Ama biz onları mutlu etmek, kendimizi affettirmek istiyoruz. Bütün gayemiz bu.
Yeah, Ferguson, Ismail Kartal is just saying there that, he just wants the fans, the support from the fans on the Trabzonspor game, and that would sort of help them get away with a win, which they want at, obviously at their own home ground. So let's jump over to the Turkcell Women's League. Oops, my apologies. So Group A, obviously, there was a big derby in that as well, again, including Fenerbahce, who won 2-1 against Beşiktaş. I think that is the highlight of the week of the Women's Super League, I'll say. Beşiktaş suffered their first loss of the season, so first loss in 12 games against Fenerbahce, who have been on fine form recently. in a bit against Besiktas, and that was a phenomenal chip, wasn't it?
Oh, mate, I think that was probably one of the better goals this week. Ahmetay's got a comment. Fenerbahçe versus Trabzonspor to have 2 red cards. Trabzon to win 2-1. Emre Beyazoğlu to be in the stands watching and to get stands off. Not sure where Emre gets into the picture. So he reckons Trabzonspor 2-1 and some red cards. I think that's a pretty good prediction to make. Trabzonspor will be going in as favourites. Going back to the game, like you said, a terrific goal, excellent goal, and Fenerbahçe getting the win, like you said. So that's a massive result for them. Obviously, Beşiktaş is sort of the benchmark of the competition. Fenerbahçe is the newcomer, and they've sort of, they're knocking on the door as the emerging team. So, good to see competitions. And obviously, Gala isn't doing too bad itself. So, run us through Gala's groups if you would like to in Group B.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, just adding to your comments, how I think Fener has been, very exceptional considering it's their first time ever as a women's team. I think they've got a very good balance. Sometimes, you look at the way the big four are run and, you're like, why can't the people that are running this women's team run the men's team? Because I think they do a very good job.
Yeah.
And I'll just leave my controversial comment there and go through the other scores. So Ereğli Belediye 2, Antalyaspor 0, Ataşehir Belediye 4, Kocaelispor 1, Hatayspor, Ahmetspor drew 3-3 in Hatay. Fatih Vatanspor, who is also a top contender in Group A, beat Altay 2-1. And Ankara Formget beat Kireçburnu 4-0 away from home. I just wanted to point out the fans' presence at the Fenerbahçe Beşiktaş game. Massive fans. GFB had an appearance there. And for a women's game for a first season, I think that was a very good attendance. So let's have a look at next week's fixtures. So on Saturday night, Australian Eastern Standard Time, Saturday during the day in Turkey, Ahmetspor will host Kireçburnu, Beşiktaş will host Ataşehir Belediye, looking to bounce back into form because the table is starting to get close as well, which we are going to get to. Antalyaspor will host Fenerbahçe. They drew last time around. And on Sunday, Kocaelispor hosts Fatih Vatanspor, Altay Hatayspor, and Ankara Formget vs Ereğli Belediyespor. So let's have a look at the table. So the table's starting to get close, especially with Fenerbahçe beating Beşiktaş now. The top 3 is only separated by 3 points. Fenerbahçe 27 points. Fatih Vatanspor, who has been the silent killer of the season, is on 28. And Beşiktaş, who have been the noisy neighbours, are on 30 points, 10 wins in 11 games. So that is where we stand in Group A at midway through the season for the Women's League. So let's jump into Group B. Galatasaray suffering a 2-1 loss against Sivasspor, which was the earliest game of the week. Rizespor losing 2-1 to Karagümrük at home. Kayserispor 0, Hakkarigücü 4. ALG with another win against Konak Belediye.
I think we've just lost Mimsy there. So I think he last was at ALG Spor 2-0 winners at Konak Belediye. Trabzonspor loses 3-0 to Adana İdman Yurdu. And Durdurlu getting a 1-0 victory over İlkadem. That sees us through the Group 3 results for this week. And on the table, which I'm not sure if we're going to be able to bring up with Mims being away. Let's see, we've got next week's fixtures on there. We've got Adana İdman Yurdu hosting Kayseri, Konak Belediye playing Trabzon, Fatih Karagümrük hosting Sivas, Rize traveling to Hakkarigücü, ALG away to İlkadem, and Galatasaray hosting Dudullu in the last week of the game. So that's pretty much all from the women's side of things. We also wanted to make a special note about NS Unal. Now, in 2022, after Robert Lewandowski, the highest scorer of goals in European club football, it is Enes Ünal with 8 goals. He scored another brace this week, and he scored one ridiculously outrageous goal from the wing, which saw his team be 3-2 winners. And I think Mems has just joined us again. I was just going move on there, Mems, for a sec.
Sorry about that. Technology's getting the better of us, isn't it?
Yeah, I was running him through. Enes Ünal wrapped up the women results, and Enes Ünal just special praise to him. 8 goals this year. And he's really getting the job done, and hopefully he can really replicate it across to the national team, that form.
Yeah, absolutely. And you hope he can, because he's been on fire this year, and we did share his goal during the week as well. It was a spectacular goal. Personally, I think it was on purpose. So that sort of wraps up what we have to talk about for the week. Ahmet A says, cross shot was incredible. Luck favors the brave, and Enes Ünal is killing it. Personally, I think he actually took the shot. You know, when you actually rewatch it, he looks directly at goal. I mean, yeah. So he might have miskicked it, but you know, because we know Turkish players, he might have miskicked it, but no one, who knows? Ferks, is there anything you wanted to add onto these conversations today? I think that's all we had to cover.
Yeah, I think that's it. We've got some Turkish Cup game fixtures continuing overnight. So keep your eyes peeled out for that. And also there is ongoing talks in the media about broadcasting rights, which you've also touched on with me. There's current broadcasting rights with both the male and the females. If you just want to brief the viewers at home about the female rights, which sort of gives them more coverage.
Yeah, absolutely. So with female rights at the moment, as Bushra mentioned at the start of the year, unfortunately, there's not much of a change. I mean, there are some offers, but there's not much of a change happening in that space. You know, hats off to Fenerbahce TV and Beşiktaş TV for showing every single game of their team. You know, the fans are able to sort of support it from there. And going back to the photo that we showed earlier with the Fenerbahce fans, I think Fener as a club has done a good job in sort of, you know, getting the fans and the team as one. And Galatasaray TV does show it at times. Their home games are always on. But yeah, with viewing rights, at the moment is just the club TV channels, unfortunately. But the final series are usually played on TRT. That's how it was in the past. So we're hoping and we're praying that that's the case this year as well.
Yeah, and hopefully for the sake of, you know, women's football, that it will be the case.
That's exactly right. And with the men's broadcasting rights, it's between two groups right now, which is Bein Sports, who are the current holders, who have not really met expectations so far in terms of finance. But so they look to be favourites, and the Saran group, so Saadettin Saran and his Saran group are also putting an offer, which is much less as an offer to the clubs, but the clubs do get more rights and more freedom in that. Ahmet A says, boys, another great show. Keep up the killer work. Inshallah, the women's game grows and they become a powerhouse in women's European football. Ahmet, all we can say is inshallah. We've been following our men's and our women's without blinking an eye. So we're hoping that both of our teams, both, you know, men's can sort of grow up to where we used to be, and women's, obviously, that's baby steps. We're hoping it can come just as good as our men's, hopefully even better. But thank you for your nice words.
Appreciate it. we love those compliments, and you know that sort of drives us to keep delivering every week in, week out.
Yeah, absolutely. And just a quick recap before we shut shop, I'll say tonight Sivasspor face Fatih Karagümrük in the Turkish Cup at 1 o'clock Australian Eastern Standard Time. Beşiktaş face Kayserispor at 4:30 tonight Australian Eastern Standard Time. And the last quarterfinal game will be played between Alanyaspor and Gaziantepspor on Friday at 4:30 a.m. So we wish a good luck to all of those teams. Bye for now. We will see you in a fortnight's time, as per our new sort of schedule. Wednesday 8 o'clock. In a fortnight's time. We will see you. Thank you for joining us. We will shut show with that amazing goal that we were talking about with Furkan Zeneta Coleman against Beşiktaş from the Fener women's team. Bye for now. Thank you for joining us.
Good night.
Fatma çıkarttı. Maçtaki en net pozisyon 10. dakikada atak sürüyor Zeneta. Zeneta Coleman'dan şık bir vuruş, harika bir gol. 10. dakika Zeneta Coleman. 10. dakikada öne geçtik. Derbide öndeyiz. Zeneta Coleman muhteşem bir gol. Önde gördü Fatma'yı. İyi değerlendirdi pozisyonu. Zeneta Coleman. Önce Kenya çaprazdan vurdu. Fatma çıkarttı. Buluştu. İşte